Aloha and welcome to episode 5 of Editing in Premiere. In this episode, we're going to talk about trimming. Trimming is the art or the practice of changing the length of a clip after you've already put it onto the timeline. And there are a handful of techniques for doing this. So I'm going to talk about 6 different ways here. These are all very powerful tools and useful in different situations. So let's just take a look at a spot that I'm going to need to trim. So here I have stand-up number 4, and I'm going to play the tail end of it here.
And we're ready to go. And cut. Now watch.
All right. When I set my original edit up, evidently I didn't do a very good job of marking my out point because we hear him say "and cut," and that was not supposed to happen. So what I want to do is to take stand-up 4 and make it a little bit shorter, even though it's already on the timeline. Now, before I start trying to do this, it's going to make my life a lot easier if I zoom in so I can see more clearly what I'm doing. So I'm just going to grab the little handle on the scroll bar here and zoom in. And looking at the audio waveforms down here, that little bump right there, I bet you that's where he says "and cut."
And cut.
Yep. But I might even want to make it shorter than that because we've got several seconds of him just watching the machine make noise.
Here, and we're ready to go.
So maybe there would be a good place to shorten this clip to. Now, I've actually got a variety of ways in which I can do this, so I'm going to demonstrate several different techniques here at the same time. The first thing I could do is just using my basic cursor is I could point at the edge of the clip, and notice that as I get right there beside the edge, it turns into an icon that clearly says, hey, you can click and drag this. So I could actually click and make that clip shorter. I'll just drag it back there to the playhead. And that did what I wanted to, except it left an empty space behind. So in this case, that's a bad thing, right? We can fix that. I can click the empty space and hit delete. That would work, wouldn't it? Yes, it would. So let's play that now.
Now watch.
Okay, I got rid of him saying "and cut," and I also made the grinding sound a little bit shorter, which is what I was trying to do. There are some other problems going on, but let's not worry about that yet. But let me undo that and show you a second way to do the same thing. So I'm going to hit Command-Z to undo and Command-Z again to undo. So now I'm back to where I started. I have a clip that's a little bit too long that I want to shorten. Just like we had a ripple delete, we can also do a ripple edit. So over here in the toolbar, if we look at this little right-handed, left-handed arrow, it's the one directly underneath the basic selection tool. If you click and hold that, you'll see that there's actually 3 edits tools hiding here. There's a ripple edit, a rolling edit, and the rate stretch tool. I'm interested in the ripple edit right now. So I'm going to select that. Now the ripple edit will combine what I just did. You'll notice that as I get close to the seam, it turns into that same icon it's turned into a minute ago, except it was yellow this time, and last time it was red. Here, let me show you. If I go back to the basic selection tool, as I get close to that edge, the icon appears, but it's red, and that means that if I click and drag to make it shorter, it'll leave space behind. Let me undo that. But if I make the same move with the ripple edit, it will close the space as it goes. Right? So here we go. I got the ripple edit tool pointed where I want it. I'm going to click and drag to the left. I'm just going to line it up with the playhead because that's convenient. And it's shortened to the clip.
Now watch.
But it also closed the space. So everything to the right slid over to stay next to the clip that I was shortening. Let me do a little bit too much. I'm going to accidentally shorten this way too far.
Spigot here, and we're ready to go.
All right. So
Spigot here.
I'm going to accidentally shorten it all the way back to here. So using the ripple tool, now the ripple tool is still selected, right? And it will stay selected until I select something else. Notice that when I'm out here away from an edge, it doesn't do anything. You've got the red slash through it. And even if I'm on top of a clip, but not near an edit, I get that same effect. But as soon as I get near that edge, it changes. All right, so I'm going to make that clip that much shorter. And everything is going to ripple over. And here we go. Let's play that.
And we'll put our little catcher underneath the spigot here. Now watch.
You know, that actually kind of works. But we know that he used to say, and now we're ready to go. And I want to keep that. I want to put that back in there, but I accidentally deleted it. The ripple tool can also be used to make things longer. So I'm going to do exactly the same thing. I'm going to take my ripple tool. I'm going to approach that edit from the left-hand side because it's the left-hand clip, stand up 4, that I want to change. And then I'm going to click and push to the right. And what it's going to do is it's going to push stand-ups 5, 6, and 7 out of the way in order to make stand-up 4 longer. So here I go. I'm clicking and I'm pushing. Now it's telling me in that little text window how much longer it's making it. And if you look up in the program window, you can see the left-hand side is changing. Okay, he's not moving. Okay, see him move his hand there? So I can actually see where that new edit's going to be when I turn it loose. I'm going to go about there and see what happens.
Underneath the spigot here, and we're ready to go. Now watch close.
All right, that's not bad. So the ripple tool is really nice in that it allows me to change the length of an existing clip in the sequence. I can make it longer or shorter, but it makes room for it either way. If I make the clip shorter, holds do not appear. Everything ripples over. If I make the clip longer, nothing gets overwritten. Stuff gets pushed out of the way. I love the ripple tool. So let me go back to the beginning of this same clip. All right, let me zoom out and do it this way.
We'll start right now and grind our beans. And action. Now our beans.
All right, I just did a terrible job on stand-up 4. Apparently I didn't mark an in point or an out point. So I need to clean up the beginning of stand-up 4 as well, now that I've cleaned up the end of it. So I'm going to zoom in a little bit. I'm going to tap the plus key this time to do it. And
action. Now that our beans.
All right. So I can see the little humps here is where he's about to start talking. Let me go back to my basic tool. Now, I've got the same situation as I did before. I could literally do the same series of things. I could, just using the basic tool, shorten this clip up, and then I could delete the hole that it made. That would work.
Now that our beans are.
Okay, let me undo those. I could totally use the ripple tool here. Right, I could grab the ripple tool, and using the ripple tool, I could make the head end of this clip shorter up to where he's about to start talking.
Now that our beans are.
And that would totally have worked too, but I undid that because I want to show you another tool. And that tool is the razor blade. So again, if I click and hold it, there's actually just the razor blade tool there, but there's a modifier we'll get to later. So when I select the razor blade tool, and again, as I come out here into empty space, you'll see that I can't do anything. But as soon as I get on top of a clip, it turns into a razor blade. Now, what I'm going to do is come over here just before he starts talking, and I'm going to single click just one time. And look what happened. Let me grab my basic tool here. These two clips used to be one clip. They used to be stand-up 4. But now what I have is part of stand-up 4 and another part of stand-up 4. Now, nothing is actually changed at this moment. If I play this, when the playhead crosses that cut, you won't see anything, you won't hear anything.
And action. Now that our beans are ground.
See, it plays perfectly smoothly. And in fact, this little bow tie icon, these two arrows pointing into each other, tell you this is what they call a through edit. It means a cut has been made, but the material actually flows seamlessly through. And if I wanted to, I could right-click that edit, and you'll see that there's an option to join through edits, which means it will repair the clip. But I don't want to repair the clip. I put that cut there for a reason, so I'm going to grab my razor blade and come and single click. If I use the razor blade tool, as soon as I'm done with it, I like to put it away. So I come back over here and grab my basic selection tool again, or I can press V on the keyboard to do that. You don't want to be running around clicking with the razor blade tool and accidentally slicing your video up in places you didn't mean to. But now that I've made that cut, look what I can do. I can grab this piece that I don't want, and again, this is just the
and action.
Right, this is the undesirable part. I can do that and hit my Shift Delete, and I've ripple deleted it out of there.
Now that our beans are
okay. For this particular edit that I just did, using the razor blade is not any better than using the ripple tool. In fact, it was an extra step. But let me zoom out here. With the razor blade, I can do other things. So let's jump down here to clip number 6. And let me zoom in just a little bit. Now, here's where he's steaming the milk. And he talks for a little while, and then he steams the milk. And then he talks for a little while longer, and then he steams the milk. We have a lot of footage here that's just him steaming milk.
The milk in the pitcher, and then I'll show you how to put a nice froth on the top of it.
So this is what I'm talking about. We really have a lengthy passage of time here with not much going on. This is not good television. Even if we cut to a close-up of it, I mean, come on. He's still steaming. And now we get to talk.
Now comes the tricky part.
Okay. And he actually fumbles this.
The milk's starting to get good and hot. Now comes the tricky part. The milk starts.
So he says the same thing twice. So really, everything from where he stopped talking here to where the playhead is now is kind of optional. Now, I could have done this at the beginning. I could have gone, when I was looking at stand-up 6, right? I could have marked an in point and an out point like this, dragged this section of the clip onto the timeline. Then I could have come back, marked a new in point and a new out point, dragged that section of the clip to the timeline, then come back to the end, marked a new in point and a new out point, and dragged that section of the clip to the timeline. But I didn't do that. So now I have to fix it up. This is what the razor blade tool is really good for. So using the razor blade, I'm going to come down into this clip, and I'm going to make 2 cuts initially. I'm going to make a cut here where I can see he's finished talking, but he's started steaming. Right about there ought to be good. And then I'm going to make a cut here where he has flubbed the line and started the line over. And it's right there where I parked the playhead. All right, so now I'm going to switch back to my selection tool. I'm going to hit the letter V to do that. So these 3 clips used to be 1 clip. And again, if I play there, there's no jump, there's no discontinuity. Right, it plays across perfectly smoothly. But what I can do now is I can grab that middle part and I can use my ripple delete, holding the shift key, little delete, to get rid of that and close up the hole.
Froth on the top of it. Now comes the tricky part.
Okay. I've introduced a new problem, but again, we'll get to that later. You can hear the edit in the change in the volume and the change of the pitch, but we have gotten rid of all that boring footage. And I can do the same thing here at the tail end.
Where the steam comes in. This is what creates the nice rich foam.
Now again, I just need to delete everything from here over. So I could use the ripple tool and that would work just fine. It's probably the most efficient way. I could click and drag, or I could use, because we're talking about the razor blade tool, I could use the razor blade tool and then ripple delete that.
And now we're ready to combine our...
Okay. Now, I might have made that too short.
This is what creates the nice rich foam. And now we're...
Yeah, let me stretch it out just a little bit. So I'm going to grab my ripple tool again, and I'm just going to take that piece of stand-up 6 and drag it to the right a wee bit. It's kind of a Zen thing. Okay, so we've talked about 3 different ways of trimming right now. We talked about using the selection tool to simply make a clip shorter, or it would actually work for making it longer. And then you would have to come back and delete the whole. Let me undo that. We talked about using the ripple delete tool, in which case it will shorten or lengthen the clip you're working on, and it will push or pull everything else on the timeline so that there's no hole generated and there's nothing replaced. Right, so I can take that stand-up 6 and make it shorter, and the whole timeline gets shorter. I can take that stand-up 6 and make it longer, and it simply pushes everything out of the way. Nothing gets lost. And we talked about using the razor blade to hack things into pieces. These are all good techniques, and they all have their place. There are a couple of other tools that we have not talked about yet. There's a rolling edit. So if I click and hold the ripple tool, you'll see there's a rolling edit. We'll come back to that at a later date. And then down here, there are 2 more tools, the slip tool and the slide tool. I'll come back to those as well. For our next lesson, we're going to move into adding B-roll to this. Let's start to make it look good.